prawie zakrywamy twarz.
Taka jest idea kanału.
Ładne buźki.
Ładny mord.
Siemanko, witam w mojej kuchni.
Nie, to nie. Coś innego.
Witajcie towarzysze. Jesteśmy właśnie w drodze do człowieka o imieniu Jed. Człowieka, który przybliży nam historię bunkrów Royal Observer Corps, który nam powie dużo więcej o nich niż my kiedykolwiek byliśmy w stanie to zrobić.
Dokładnie. Jego bunkier, który on przejął i odrestaurował, wygląda niesamowicie z tego, co widzieliśmy na zdjęciach. I dzisiaj on nas tam zaprosi i będziemy mogli zobaczyć wszystko. On wszystko opowie i będzie git.
Już nas zaprosił jakieś 2 miesiące temu. Kurde.
Tak jest, także zostańcie z nami. Dobrze. Jak się nazywa ten gościu, twój kolega?
Który?
Daniel?
Daniel.
Daniel, deszcz na betonie, zostań z nami.
Posterunki Royal Observer Corps to setki podziemnych struktur, w którym załoga złożona najczęściej z 3 osób miała za zadanie wykryć, zidentyfikować, zlokalizować oraz powiadomić o samolocie przelatującym nad Wielką Brytanią. Załoga składała się głównie z cywili, którzy jako ochotnicy wcierali się w rolę korpusu obserwatorów. Po zakończeniu II wojny światowej rozwój samolotów odrzutowych, ich większa prędkość oraz ulepszone radary spowodowały mniejsze znaczenie obserwacji gołym okiem. Rola ROC zmieniła się wówczas na monitorowanie skutków wybuchu broni jądrowej. Budowany głównie z betonu, posiadał zamykany specjalnym kluczem włas, a pod nim 4-metrowy szyb prowadzący do podziemnego bunkru. Podłoga o grubości 30 cm, ścianami 17 cm oraz sufitem 20 cm miało to zredukować zewnętrzne promieniowanie nawet 1000-krotnie. Dzisiaj spotkaliśmy się z Jedem, który zrekonstruował jeden z posterunków monitorujących i pozwoli nam zajrzeć do środka. Przy czym przedstawi nam sprzęt, jaki był wykorzystywany przez załogę Royal Observer Corps.
Right the way up to the A1.
Right.
He owns all of this land.
Seriously?
So yeah. So he's mega rich. And me and a mate were doing kind of what you're doing, going around looking at bunkers and stuff like that. And I thought it might be a good idea to just sort of ask him, can I have your hole in the ground? And he said, yeah.
Zadanie, jakie postawił przed sobą, nie było zbyt łatwe. Bunkier został kompletnie zalany i pozbycie się wody wymagało użycia pompy. Woda spowodowała sporo zniszczeń, więc większość przedmiotów jeszcze znajdujących się na dole musiało zostać wyrzuconych. Styropianowe płytki, które chroniły przed niskimi temperaturami, spadały ze ścian. Po zakończeniu działań przez ROC po 1990 na powierzchni bunkra zostało posadzonych sporo drzew, by utrudnić dostanie się do niego. One także musiały zostać usunięte. Cała praca, jaką Jed wykonał, zajęła mu niemal 2 lata, podczas którego ciężko pracował na rezultat, jaki za chwilę zobaczymy.
Even though this looks like it's sealed, you get condensation and stuff,
Yes.
and it runs down because it stays pretty constant temperature down there,
Yeah.
and it just goes into there. But this pipe is obviously the sump, and you could crank the handle, and you could pump it out, and the water comes out through the back just here.
That's a pump.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah. This lid here, because most of them. Have you been down the ones with a big heavy weight?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in the 1980s, this post was broken into by CND, Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament, and they smashed everything to pieces. So any ones that were broken into, they were replaced with this sprung lid to make it more secure.
So that original one?
Yes, yeah. So that's a original 80s one.
CND powstało w listopadzie 1957. Jej zadaniem było rozbrojenie jądrowe państw oraz zaostrzenie międzynarodowych przepisów o nierozprzestrzenianiu broni jądrowej. Przeciwstawiali się oni działaniom zbrojnym, które mogły skutkować użyciem broni jądrowej, chemicznej lub biologicznej. Finally, the fire bunker that's actually in place.
It is, yeah. It's tried to seal it up a bit because obviously it's an old asbestos one. So this is what they used to wear from the late 1950s through to the early 1970s. So 15 group, this post was part of 15 group. This belonged to a guy who used to work at the Bourne ROC post. Yeah. It's not there anymore, it's under it's all gone. But he used to work there, and Bourne was part of this group of 3.
Setki posterunków zostało podzielonych na grupy, które składały się z 3 lub 4 posterunków. W każdej grupie był tak zwany master post, do którego były przekazywane informacje z innych bunkrów z grupy. W grupie 15 znajdowały się posterunki z Grantham, Bourne oraz obecnego tutaj Buckminster, a master post był w Lincoln. Takie przygotowanie miało pomóc w komunikacji i w rezultacie przewidzieć, jakie miejsca będą najbardziej narażone na atak nuklearny.
There were different ranks?
So this one is for a chief observer. So every post would be commanded by a chief observer, and then you would have an officer in charge of 3 posts. So this one here is the chief observer who actually was on this post, a man called Norman Ager. So this is his uniform.
What's the one with the aircraft?
So that one, so when you did your tests, you did it for aircraft spotting. So you used to get a blue for basic, red and then gold, but you used to get stars for each one as well. So if you did a red, before you could go up to gold, you needed to get 4 stars to it, and then you could progress up to the top. Officer for this area was a man called Craig Bellamy. That's his uniform.
Wow, that looks good.
So Mr. Bellamy, I think he's passed away now, but he used to live at Grantham. So yeah, this was his uniform. We've not got everything. We've got nearly everything for down here. So the main bits are, this style here is called a WB 1400. This is the sort that would actually be used in like hospitals, police stations, but it works in exactly the same way. And what happens is you sort of get like a rhythmic beep as it comes through, and then when the attack's coming in, it goes like really, really fast. Just like a heart monitor in a hospital, if it's beeping rhythmically, you're fine, and then when it goes crazy, that's when you've got to worry. To communicate with the outside world, in the 1980s, they started to use these things called teletalk. So it would be on, you could turn it up and hear the chatter from all the other posts, but you couldn't speak to another post, you could only speak to headquarters, which was at Lincoln for this one. Yeah, so transmit and literally just speak into that.
And that was transmitting to who? To every post?
So no, every post can hear you, but the only place that you can talk to is headquarters. So you can talk to them and they can talk back.
Yeah, but so every post can hear.
Yeah, but every post can hear if they want to. Yeah, so they know if there's any incoming attacks or anything like that. When this post was stood down, the call sign for this post was Kilo 2.
Yeah.
So you called in Kilo 2, whatever the time was, and we're on schedule, because they used to work it in shifts. So if the bomb went off, you'd be down here in shifts, going around. I think that's my dad. Yes, this is my dad. This is Neil.
Hello.
So
How are you doing?
Neil's helped to restore everything.
Cool. I'm Neil. Nice to meet you. I'm ready for action here,
what you'd have is, the first you'd know about it of an incoming attack is, obviously you get the rhythmic beeping from there, and then you're watching for this. This is something called a bomb power indicator, and what happens is you know the tiny little pipe that's up the top.
Yeah.
That goes, so you unscrew the top, that goes onto it, and when the blast wave comes through, it comes into here and it forces it down this pipe.
Yeah.
And inside here there are like bellows that compress with the air pressure, and it causes the needle to move, and that tells you how powerful the bomb is.
Wow.
So you give the time. So at the minute this is stuck at 14 minutes past 4. So Kilo 2, toxin is the code word for an atomic blast. Toxin, Kilo 2, 1614, pressure, and then whatever the needle moves to. As soon as you've done that, you have to wait for 30 seconds. Then number 2 observer, because there'd be 3 people down here, number 2 observer would then have to go outside, and next to, So next to the hatch, when you came in, there's that mounting plate. That mounting plate is for this, which is called a ground zero indicator. What you've got, where the mounting plate is on the top, it's so it will face perfectly north. So every one is ever so slightly differently positioned depending on how the post's built. So these, what you've got is you've put photographic paper inside these, and the sunlight would obviously expose the paper, but because the flash of the nuclear bomb is so bright, you get a spot on the thing. So on here, this is one from a test. So when they used to do like exercises for training, they would be given a sealed envelope with these in, so they wouldn't know what was coming to do it. So on here, that's where the spot is for the... But because it's a pinhole camera, it flips the image. So that's an airburst. If it's below the zero line, the horizon line, if it's below it, it's an airburst. If it's above it, it's a ground burst. Airbursts cause more destruction, but less radiation. Ground bursts cause more destruction, but more radiation, because it's sucking up more dust into the air from the explosion. So, what number 2 observer would have to do is you have to go up top, undo this, take out photographic paper. That's what these are for, the black packets, and then put new photographic paper in, and then come back down. Once they've got the information back down here, the chief observer would transmit through where the position is, and they'd use the information from the 3 posts in the cluster to mark it out on the to triangulate to find out where the epicenter was.
The echolocation, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah,
so I think you've been to Grantham Post, haven't
Yeah,
you?
we've been Grantham.
Yeah, so Bourne, this one, and Grantham were in the group of 3 in the 1980s. We're here. So the main locations in the 1980s in this area, Grantham, you know the army base at Grantham?
Yeah.
That was a really massive logistics depot, and the idea with that, because they thought that all of the south coast ports would be bombed because London would be a massive target, they would take all of the stuff from Grantham and go out to the North Sea ports like Hull to get supplies into Germany. So Grantham was a massive logistics corps base. Going down here, so where are we? So Cottesmore had nuclear bombers based there. North Luffenham's just down here. North Luffenham had surface-to-air missiles. You've got Woolfox Lodge, which is about here. They had surface-to-air missiles as well to shoot down incoming missiles and bits like that. So yeah, you've got all of these, and as you go further north, if you go up past, where are we? So along the A1, you've got Waddington about here, which obviously had nuclear bombers as well. Nottingham, just off the map here, that was going to be the regional seat of government, so that was a major target as well. So in this area, quite a lot would have just been completely destroyed.
There was quite a lot happening.
Yeah. So they were main strategic targets for the Russians, because when the Soviet Union collapsed and information came out of where were targets, part of it was revealed. But in the 1960s, the government, after the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962, they prepared a list of all the most dangerous areas, and these were on the list. If you were down here when the bomb went off, you had you would stay down here until the end. So for food and stuff, you'd have 7 water cans. They're original ones. You'd have 7 of these water cans, and you'd have petrol cans as well. And the petrol cans would be for running your stove. These are what the stoves were like. This one is actually from this post. And you'd have to do that with this door shut, but the lid open to let all the fumes out.
Oh,
so,
yes.
But yeah, so that's how you do your cooking. And then in here, you've got, there's the toilet and there's a generator so you could charge the batteries. These were old, to begin with, they were old batteries that used to run tanks from World War II, and then they were given to the ROC. So we got from Castle Bytham, we got this, which would be the crate for the air raid siren. I haven't got an air raid siren, I can't afford one at the minute. Your air raid siren being there, when you came on shift, if you thought there was going to be, if you were told to man the post because there was going to be an attack, you'd have to take your air raid siren out the top. When you were told that there was an incoming attack through the bleeping, one of them would have to go up the top and crank the air raid siren up to warn everybody in the area.
Big sound.
Yeah, very. So this is called a radiat meter. So if you needed to go out and do, it was called mobile monitoring.
Yeah.
So basically, hopefully your car would still be there rather than being blown away or something like that from a nuclear blast. But basically, you'd have to get in your car and you drive round to various points and you get a radiation reading on here to see how powerful the radiation is. You didn't always have to do that. The other way that you could was by using this thing here. So this is something called a fixed survey meter. I don't know if the battery's all there. With this, so the big post, big pipe that's sticking out the top comes down to here, and that's basically it's a Geiger counter. It measures the radiation in the air and it just tells you what level it is on that. So when in the 1986, when Chernobyl blew up, Sally Garner, whose jumper that was, she stood in her back garden in Leicester and she picked up fallout from Chernobyl in Leicester on one of these. So this sort of light came in the late 70s, 80s. Before that, it was just that. But that's the original light that was down here.
So when you flip it, it goes
so you can go to either one.
Why is that like that?
There we go.
Why is it like that?
So it's one or the other. That uses slightly more power than the bulb does. And in the early days, you either had the bulb or the mirror you were told to put down onto the table, and then the candle, and just use the candle. And that was it.
Mirror
There's no
or the
other
candle?
light. Yeah.
So like the mirror was reflecting the
Reflect
light?
the light back out into it. And then what you're supposed to do is every hour, but once every hour, you'd put that light on for, I think it was 10 minutes, to make you think you'd been outside in a brighter light.
Seriously?
Yeah, that's what they thought.
Don't make you crazy, yeah?
Yeah, that was the plan. Hopefully not to make you crazy. All the communications from here went through the pipe in the back, and then it just connected to the telegraph poles.
Yeah.
So obviously in a nuclear war they just get blown up, so you couldn't actually talk to anybody. So every master post had one of these. Now mine isn't a master post, but the one at Bourne would have had anchor points in the ground, and on the rear hatch an aerial that they could extend, and then that meant if their communications were down through that, they could then telephone help. Yeah, so they could still transmit, but only in one place.
To właściwie byłoby na tyle. Razem z Anatolim dowiedzieliśmy się naprawdę sporo o bunkrach Royal Observer Corps i mam nadzieję, że Wy także. Choć oczywiście nie jest to kompletna wiedza na ten temat. Jet organizuje kilka razy do roku dni otwarte, w którym każdy może rzucić okiem na wnętrze jednego z naprawdę świetnie zrekonstruowanych posterunków. Link do strony Jeta, na której możecie dowiedzieć się więcej, znajduje się w opisie materiału. Więc jeśli mieszkacie niedaleko lub interesuje Was historia ROC, wpadajcie. Drużyna Forfitera dziękuję Jed'owi, że znalazł dla nas chwilę, by podzielić się z nami swoją wiedzą, oraz Wam, drodzy widzowie, o ile dotarliście do końca materiału. Forfiter miał ostatnio bardzo długą przerwę, ale już jesteśmy z powrotem. Mimo epidemii koronawirusa, który zagraża nam wszystkim, my przygotowaliśmy się wystarczająco dobrze. Dlatego nasza przygoda będzie dalej kontynuowana.